So hello and welcome to this course. Before we jump into actual programming, I thought I'll give you a quick introduction to what this course is about and what we are going to learn throughout this development. This course is about developing a cross-platform application for both iOS and Android with Xamarin and Firebase backend. And throughout the development, we'll be making a shopping list application in which users can do a variety of things. Users can make different lists. For each list, they can have different items. They can cross off the items if they so choose to, and they can actually log in and log out from their backend. And if they are logged in and they're using the backend, they can actually share lists between different users. For instance, in this current illustration, I have a list that is called Office Stuff that belongs to the user on my Android side, but it also shows on my iOS side, which means two users can collaborate on the same list at the same time. So this app, even though it is designed to be a shopping list, it could be easily expanded into anything that needs a backend. It can even be expanded to become a chat application if you want. Throughout the development, we will cover a lot of different things for Xamarin development for both iOS and Android, and I will develop everything in a native way. Because it is native, we might end up doing some extra coding, but I think at the same time, it teaches you the differences between the two platforms. For instance, if I press this new list button, we see a UI alert controller. And if I press the new list on my Android side, we see an alert dialog box. These two are two different things and we code them separately, but at the same time, we learn how they work on either of the platforms. Same thing applies for a table view in our iOS application or a list view in our Android application. All of these different things are native. I try to share the code as much as possible. I try to share the logic of the application as much as possible. But of course, when it comes to the UI, because we do things in a native way, there might be things that are quite different and we have to develop them separately for each of the platforms. Now, that's the introduction to what the application is. The course essentially is designed for someone who has some basic understanding of programming. If you don't know anything about Visual Studio or Xamarin Studio, that's okay, as long as you know what programming in general is. If you're familiar with the basics of iOS development in Xcode or Android development in Android Studio, that would be really great. That's kind of the thing that I expect you to know when you come to this course. Throughout the course, I won't be spending any time for basic things such as what is a variable or what is a method. But of course, whenever I use a certain technology or I use certain topic, I will discuss why we are doing that thing. So that's kind of, the things that you kind of need to know before you come to this course. Throughout the course and by the end of it, we will cover C# for cross-platform development in Visual Studio or Xamarin Studio. You can use either of them that you want. We will learn data structures for both local and on-cloud databases. We will learn Firebase backend for things such as authentications and database management and reading and writing values. I will modularize my code as much as possible. This is our application by the end, which we have all of these classes that are common. We have all of these that are for iOS side and all of these guys that are for our Android side. So I try to modularize our code so that, you can work on very, very specific pieces at any time. Then we look at interface design for things such as table views, list views, alert controllers, buttons, text fields, button text fields and text views, as well as layouts. We look at user feedback, so user can see different things that are happening in the screen based on, whatever the user decides to do. We give them a little feedback. If they share a list, we see them whether the list has been shared successfully or not. And of course, we use a lot of asynchronous code simply because we are communicating with backends and we need to wait for our data to be fetched properly. Now, the course is really useful for someone who has basic understanding of programming and wants to learn cross-platform development, or someone who already knows iOS or Android within Xcode or Android Studio and wants to expand into Xamarin Studio, or someone who wants to learn Firebase or data structures and databases in general. For those people, this course would be very, very useful. Or for anyone who wants to make an application that has a backend, whether it is a shopping list application, or it's a chat application, or it's an application that is for some sort of utility that relies on a lot of backend information. For all of those users, this development would be quite useful. So I hope you enjoy the course. If you run into any issues throughout your development, just get in touch with me. I usually get back to all the emails in about 12 hours. And I hope you learn from this course. So let's get started.